Hi, good morning. We want to thank you all for joining us for Simplifying the Cloud, Migrating Oracle EBS to the Cloud. My name is Mary Burcham, and I'm the Business Development Manager for Centroid. Before we get started, we are recording this session, and we will have it available on our website on demand. So we also want to encourage questions. So please use the chat feature, and we will answer all of those questions at the end of the presentation. So without further delay, I would like to introduce to you Ajay Arora. He is Centroid's Chief Technology Officer and Managing Partner. Ajay?
Hey, thanks, Mary. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar series of talking about EBS moving to the cloud and the motivational drivers behind it. So what we will discuss today is what are the motivational drivers for migration for ERP or a kind of mission critical application? What are the cloud options we have? Outside of the on-prem, what other cloud providers are providing it for EBS application itself? We'll look at the about 10,000 feet view of the cost analysis as well for moving to a cloud platform, and how do you actually get started? Okay, again, just want to let you know you're not by yourself in this. We are here to help you in the journey. So we'll talk about it. How can Centroid help? So the first thing is, let's talk about the migration itself. Why consider the migration? Again, ERP applications are mostly considered as the bread and butter and the mission critical applications for any enterprise. And the migration efforts are mostly driven by either business or by IT. Again, yes, it's an EBS enterprise application, so yes, business drivers do take priority in this case. But what are those business drivers? The business drivers are very, very simple. Okay, number one, what are the existing processes and do they fit in your current environment or not? Secondly, looking at what your near and long-term business goals are. I'll give an example of it. Is if you are on an application whose version is expiring by the end of this year, but you're already considering a new application, then that's your short-term goal, is to basically stay on the current platform where you are and not make any changes. But if the long-term plan is to stay on the same application and it fits your enterprise, absolutely we need to consider the roadmap strategy as well. Then thirdly comes as the compliance regulations. And that's what drives most of the enterprises into picking the processes to adhere to those compliance regulations. So number one, like I give you an example of it, HIPAA compliance. How do we actually secure the customer data? How do we actually make personal data secured from every aspect of it, especially from the access perspective? And then lastly, also, what are your business M&A goals and the geographical location needs? Means when we consider a cloud option, what are the geographical presence for the cloud vendor is? So those are the couple of the main drivers from the business side, which actually talks into looking at the application to move into the cloud platform. But again, let's not just be taken by the business drivers only. Their IT drivers are also as compelling as business drivers are. And what are those IT drivers? Okay, again, basically modernizing the aged hardware. That's one of the biggest things people and CTOs mostly look at, is that I need to look at how aged my hardware is, and should I reinvest into buying new hardware, or do we need to look at the cloud options? Consolidation. Okay. We have beat that drum so many times from consolidation's perspective that it's actually kind of going sideways. But again, with the licensing perspective, when you have to invest in hardware, consolidation absolutely plays a pivotal role. The next one is the faster innovation. We know it's very, very hard to steer a big ship. So how do we actually bring the change in the organization, is to actually doing the innovation and also going into a platform which actually gives us the flexibility of innovating ourselves, which brings automation like things into the play. Then fourth point is absolutely consumption and performance management. No matter how much we deny it, consumption itself drives what the platform of choice will be. Means if it's a month-end process or a year-end process, can I go auto scale myself to or my application in such a way so we can actually scale up to give it more resources to finish the month-end or year-end or some kind of books, any kind of ending process which has to go into the books to actually make sure the resources are properly allocated and then scale it down when they are not needed anymore. And same thing goes for performance as well. And last but not the least, we talked about compliance in the business side, but also from the IT side, security of the data, compliance of processes and the access. That's a bigger role than anything else. So the point of not IT drivers is, okay, how do I get there? It's not just how do you get there, but it's actually what are you going to do when you get there? And that's the biggest point is your organization ready for those radical changes which the business and the IT both can bring to the environment itself. So we'll look at what are some of the aspects of it. So let's look at the cloud options. While we're testing the market, of course, you have multiple options available to you. The biggest one is the public cloud providers, which provide services like infrastructure as a service or a platform as a service. Then secondly, a private cloud hosting itself, which is kind of everything as a service. So you can actually have any kind of service you want available to you on subscription. And of course, last but not the least is the software as a service, which is a subscription based, and you do not have the perpetual licensing on the software itself. You actually just lease it for the time you're using the software itself. And so that means the software vendor controls the versions, the features, and processes built in the application. And of course, that's absolutely an option as well. So what we'll do is we'll go through all the three options in a little bit more detail, and then we go back to the what is the selection criteria behind it. So when we look at the public cloud providers, okay, there are multiple of them which are playing a predominant role in the market today. Amazon being again way ahead of the curve when it came like 2003, 2004, when it started doing the public cloud itself. Then Azure, Microsoft Azure, GCP, Google Cloud Platform, and OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, playing a pivotal role to complete the market and bring all kind of offerings to the table itself from the public cloud perspective. When we look at the cloud options for the public cloud providers, we look at what is the platform certification. Now, EBS, which is eBusiness Suite, being an ERP and critical application, we absolutely have to go with what are the certified platforms and the underlying data store certifications that's available to us for that application version itself. Then we look at the platform optimization, which means I don't want to be in a point where we are stuck with the aged hardware again 2 years down the road. So how can we future-proof ourselves so we can actually get on a platform which can update itself every 2 to 3 years, such a way we're never on aged or aging hardware itself. The third is, like we talked about, M&A and geographical location as one of the business drivers. What are the geographical presence the cloud provider has? What are the latencies from the cloud perspective itself? Then we look at the business continuity, and not only just the business continuity of 3 nines or 4 nines, which we matter again SLAs. We also look at from the business continuity perspective, are there any chargeback models? Again, business will penalize IT if the application or the system is not available. So why can't IT take it back to the public cloud providers itself? That to have something to pay back to the IT team if the public cloud is not available for some time duration. Then the publish security and compliance metrics are not just it's a once a year, it's on an ongoing basis. what are the compliance regulations that the public cloud provider has been going through and where they are in that process. Then lastly, when is the overall being flexible for the total cost of ownership. If we think our business is going one way and we signed a 3-year deal, okay, and 2 years down the road we steer the ship in a different direction, how flexible is the public cloud provider to actually working with us to understand how we have changed the process itself, and basically be able to use those invested dollars to get us ready for the next change what we want to bring to the organization itself. So those are the some of the things we need to look at when we go and evaluate a public cloud provider. Then we comes into a private cloud or a hosting. Again, I can call it as a hybrid cloud provider provide also. But overall, when we look at it, it's where when you actually have something hosted in a third party's data center managed by somebody else, and some might be on the public cloud itself. So when we look at it, it's basically looking at security and compliance, the business continuity, geographical presence. Again, those are the things we talked about from a private cloud, a public cloud perspective, but same thing applies for the private cloud as well. And one of the things which is very critical in this case to understand the platform optimization, because most of the private hosting side, people buy or the companies buy the hardware for a specific client and have them host on it without understanding and without telling the customer what are they going to do in 2 to 3 years down the road when that hardware starts getting aged. So we need to actually have that discussion, and I know it's a hard discussion, but we need to have that discussion with the private cloud provider as well. And then the last option we talked about is the subscription service of SaaS. Okay. Now SaaS is, I mean, it's a different paradigm to think about. It's actually a complete thinking, a change in thinking itself from the business side, because it can actually, the processes are not uh, customized. They're actually defined out of the black box and driven and given to you as a black box itself. Okay, so what are the business impact of it? What is the application roadmap? How long the current process or current feature be supported by the software vendor in the longer term? The security and compliance, this is where I say the change in thinking comes in, is because we are no longer responsible for the operating system or the hardware or the patches. Now you are given a subscription service, so you have to understand how the data is being secured and the overall compliance of it and how does it meet with your business requirements. And then business flexibility, which means proximity to the business processes, the workflows, and that basically is that how flexible as those workflows are in the subscription service, that I can adhere to my business, or do I have to change my business to adhere to the out of the box workflows. So those kind of things we need to look at from the subscription service. Now remember, we are talking about EBusiness Suite, and there is a subscription service available uh, from a software vendor on that aspect itself, and it's a radical change. It is I can think about it as a complete re-implementation of the application itself. That means redefining the business processes to either to customize to your needs, or customize your business to actually meet with the predefined out of the box workflows. So that's a huge thing to change, to think about when we actually bring that to the table to be discussed as one of the options. Now, when we look at the e-business suite, so we have helped tons of customers to understand uh, could be a new and the best cloud platform for their ERP application, especially e-business suite. And we have evaluated all the 4 vendors we talked about and some of the private hosting as well. What are the biggest features we look at? We look at overall, again, We talked about the public cloud, four or five options. We talked about what are the facts we need to look at. So when we look at eBusiness Suite, we pick OCI. Why did we pick OCI? Okay, and that's where we need to look at is that cost savings. It's the cheapest in the industry. Again, does cost come, again, being cheapest, does it come with any compromises? And that's where we go into the next step of security and compliance, which is data and environment security. Okay, OCI itself is a SOC 1, SOC 2, and PCI compliance regulated. It also follows HIPAA and also is certified with a FedRAMP. So federal business is also being conducted on the OCI itself. It's the best performance for the price. And if you look at the architecture diagram the team has put together on the right side, that actually talks about how flexible the environment is by giving you high availability and the redundancy within the same region itself. So it gives me the best performance for the price. Okay? And also it gives me not only that, it also gives me an efficient foundation to build on it. There is a lot of automation already built in OCI from the get-go, but also gone are the days when we have to download the tar balls or flip the CDs to install the software. Now we can actually download or actually not even download, we can actually orchestrate a new version of the application from the marketplace itself. We don't have to install the database first. We don't have to do the application server and then deploy the application. That's already available to you as a packaged application in the marketplace. All you have to do is orchestrate in your tenancy. And also OCI supports, again, like we talked about, the overall growth strategy is which is capacity on demand, auto scaling for the month or the year end processes. Okay. The close proximity of the application itself, okay, brings it very close to the business itself, and the modernization brings all the new features and as a featuring aspects that's available in the market back to the business and to the IT team as well. And this is where IT team loves the words. It actually completely adheres to the MAA strategy, which is the maximum availability architecture, means no single point of failure. So OCI is the only in basically public cloud provider that provides us that flexibility, because if I look at AWS, I don't have rack available. I cannot do clustering. Okay, they are absolutely, again, uh, available. They have done the regulatory compliance certifications as well. But if I cannot do the MAA, that means I'm putting my business at risk and my application at risk by having multiple single points of failure. So we have seen customers going to AWS or GCP, don't get me wrong, but we have to evaluate from the application workload perspective what is the best suited platform for the customer itself. One of the success stories we have is HID Global. Okay, we were able to migrate their EBS to the OCI at a very higher and lightning speed. But not only that, we actually not only migrated them to OCI, but also upgraded them in the meanwhile as well. So it actually, we were given a certain amount of mandate by the HID management, and we were able to do that successfully. And they are one of the best reference cases out there in the market to actually have an MAA architecture, which is the full high availability, no single point of failure architecture out there without compromising anything. So how do you, again, so this is what, so far what we talked about, what are the options for migrating, what are the drivers for it, and also a reference success story. So how do you actually get started? It's very simple. Okay, we need to do whether you need to look at from the cloud readiness assessment, basically that is your workload ready for being to moving or migrating to cloud. Then we do the workload assessment. Then we look at the future growth and the business processes. How do they adhere to? Where do they go? Are you willing to change some business processes if you have to do a third option like SaaS? And then also from the consolidation perspective or M&A side, what other things you're basically taking on which can impact some of the migration strategies too. So those are the four big things we need to look at when you want to get started. And absolutely, Centroid as our team is here to help you into doing the cloud readiness assessment, the workload assessment, and actually kind of walking with you on this journey to cloud together. So Mary, did we get any questions on the webinar?
Yes, we've got several questions here. Let me start with the first one that came in. What's the split between business and IT drivers impacting the cloud move?
Oh, wow. Okay. So both business and IT drivers are equally important, but eBusiness Suite being a business application itself, we have seen business drivers actually overweighing the IT drivers completely. Again, don't underestimate the IT drivers itself, but so far, if I look back at it, business drivers are actually kind of ahead of the IT drivers, which is basically forcing the migration to cloud itself, based on the business processes, based on the M&A, based on the again long and short term uh, roadmaps. So it's about a split of about 60-40. So 60% business processes, 40% IT processes.
Okay, great. What factors were considered before selecting OCI for eBusiness Suite applications?
Okay, absolutely. So we did consider a lot of the factors which we talked about when we looked at the public cloud options. All those factors were considered, and also some of the things which the different organizations were doing today for their on-prem applications. We considered that as well. Made a checklist and put basically pros and cons of each option and considered and basically walk through it. If we go back to the public cloud options, all the factors we considered, okay, those also become one of the metrics or KPIs in that checklist itself.
Okay, how many migrations has Centroid done to OCI and other cloud providers?
So I'll say roughly we have done about 50 EBS migrations. Again, I could be a little bit off here and plus minus 10 here, but I'll say 50 is a safe number for me to start with. And we have done about 40 of them to OCI, based on the factors, based on the business and the IT drivers and the optimizations the customers are looking at. And 10 of them have gone to other cloud providers, which is AWS, GCP, and Azure as well. Just to let you know, we are not only just OCI Platinum partner, but also we are a select member for AWS, member of the GCP partner community, and member of the Microsoft Azure community as well. So we are able to migrate and look at the pros and cons of each cloud option itself.
Okay, good. Well, this is my favorite. How can we get started and who do we need to contact?
Oh, absolutely. So very, very simple. To get started, go to centroid.com/cloud, and we can actually, you can contact us directly from there, or you can send, I'm going to sacrifice Mary's email here. Or you can send an email to Mary directly to get started, and feel free to reach out to us with questions or to get started for the complimentary cloud readiness assessment. And also we can do the workload assessment. So feel free to reach out to us, and we will eagerly waiting for basically kind of business to start and see how we can help you in that journey.
Fantastic. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us again today. This webinar is going to be uploaded to centroid.com, so you can review it later. It'll be available on demand. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to me. As Ajay provided you, it's mary.burcham@centroid.com, or you can reach out to Ajay direct, and I'll be happy to sacrifice his information. But again, we want to thank you, and y'all have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar.